There's a crucial molecule in your body that helps control everything. Your circulation, your energy, your stamina, your heart, even your sharpness of mind. It's called nitric oxide. But after age 40, your body makes less and less of it. Less blood flow, less stamina, less of you. But now there's N101, the nitric oxide lozenge developed by Dr. Nathan Bryan, the world's leading nitric oxide researcher backed by Nobel Prize-winning science. N101 is designed to naturally restore your body's nitric oxide levels. Just do what I do and let one dissolve in your mouth twice a day. I especially make sure to take it before workouts. N101 goes to work in minutes, releasing nitric oxide directly into your bloodstream, supporting healthy circulation, boosting oxygen delivery to your muscles and brain, helping you feel the way you're supposed to feel. More energy, better blood flow, sharper focus. Day after day. N101, it's the science of you working better. Visit HoffmanNO.com. That's HoffmanNO.com and use coupon code Hoffman10 for 10% off N101.
Welcome to Intelligent Medicine, America's foremost program on health, medicine, and nutrition, featuring the latest on both conventional and alternative therapies. Now, here's Dr. Ronald Hoffman.
Welcome to Intelligent Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. It's a weekly program that brings to you the best of high-tech medicine, the best of natural therapies. That's what I do, and what you do is you're supposed to call 877-726-8255. And when you call, you'll be prompted to leave a message. And when you do so, you can pose your question or share a comment. 877-726-8255. Whatever it has to do with intelligent medicine. You can ask questions about nutrition. You can ask questions about medical ailments. We've got several great questions coming up that will prompt some interesting conversations. And we got some interesting stories for you lined up today. We're going to talk, in light of the Artemis space voyage, we're going to talk about sex in outer space. We're also going to talk about how America's largest public hospital system says that they're ready to replace radiologists with artificial intelligence. We'll talk tattoos. We'll talk about a hidden gut trigger behind ALS and dementia. We got lots to talk about this weekend. So let's go on the subject of cholesterol. And if you are headed to the doctor in the next few months, expect an onslaught of urgings to go on a statin drug or even on one of the more powerful drugs now available. There are a variety of other options which will lower cholesterol even further. Some of these are injectable drugs. The PCSK9 drugs are injectable currently, but they will be developing oral forms. And there'd be a variety of ways of knocking your LDL down to low double digits. And there are some new 2026 American Heart Association updated cholesterol guidelines that will encourage your doctor to urge you to take a statin drug or a comparable medication to lower your cholesterol at even an earlier age, because these new guidelines emphasize earlier lifelong risk assessment starting in young adulthood. And let me tell you my position on statin drugs and cholesterol-lowering drugs. I am not against them, and I wish I had a buck for every patient that I have urged to take a statin drug, because many patients come to me skeptical about conventional medicine. And then I have to tell them that, face the facts, you're at high risk for cardiovascular disease. We've discovered that you have a high plaque count, a calcium score on an EBT heart scan or a calcium scan. That is a simple test that can be administered, costs maybe up to a couple $100, sometimes covered by insurance, sometimes not, but it's a good way of assessing whether you're at risk. And then I've urged them, particularly if they're younger. You know, if a patient comes in, they're 40 years old and they already have plaque, well, they've got another 40 years of life to accumulate plaque, and during that time they could experience a major adverse cardiovascular event, a MACE. that we want to avoid. And demonstrably, in people who are at high risk, there is a reduction in risk. But the analogy that I sometimes use is that if you're driving, good idea to put on seatbelts. Seatbelts save lives. But if you're in your garage and say you decide to organize and clean out your glove compartment, which I do all too infrequently, all kinds of junk accumulates there, and I sometimes have to get in there and get rid of the detritus. Well, you're in the garage, the car's not moving, so you don't need to put on your seatbelts. And a similar situation occurs in people who are at low risk for cardiovascular disease. And, we thought that statins were the bomb for preventing cardiovascular disease for everyone. We just simply added to the drinking water, like fluoride and chlorine. But there is going to be an effort to include using something called the Prevent Risk Calculator to determine 30-year risks. Earlier screening for children, even ages 9 to 11, and this is a good thing, a one-time screening for Lp(a), lipoprotein A, to identify hidden risks, because people who have an elevated Lp(a), even if their cholesterol is reasonable, they have a higher risk for cardiovascular disease. New drugs are coming down the pike shortly to address Lp(a). Currently, it's not affected too much by diet or supplementation. So you got to get it checked to see if you're at high risk. And for even somebody who has a relatively good cholesterol, if their Lp(a) is high, they might consider a statin drug or something stronger. What they say here is that virtually all patients with diabetes, they got to get on a cholesterol drug. They want their LDL to be under 70. Okay. They also want you to use the Prevent Risk Calculator. More on that lately because I just took the test, and I want to tell you a little bit about the pros and cons about the Prevent Risk Calculator, which you can access online. You can take the test, but buyer beware on that test, because it seems like it stacks the deck towards taking a statin. Because really, a lot of doctors think, and this is actually a common theory among physicians in orthodox medicine, is that the earlier you start a statin, even if you have minimal risk, you could spend, decades and decades and decades on a statin, it will considerably reduce your risk of ultimately developing cardiovascular risk. There are some doctors who believe that virtually everyone should be taking a statin. That's not my opinion, but it is a prevailing view. One of the things that I kind of don't like about the new American Heart Association guidelines, they specifically state, dietary supplements caution. The guidelines explicitly note that supplements, fish oil, garlic, etc., are not effective alternatives to statin medication. And the key word is alternatives. I don't think that if you have super high cholesterol, or if you have high plaque score, if you have diabetes, if you have high risk, if you've had a stent, if you've had a bypass surgery, if you've had a previous heart attack, that you can avoid taking cholesterol-lowering drugs and merely take fish oil and garlic. Or Kyolic aged garlic extract is actually one of our sponsors. So the word alternative suggests that it's an either or. And I think that there are considerable benefits to be had, even if you are taking a statin, to take fish oil, to take an aged garlic extract supplement, because there will be adjunctive benefits. That's been demonstrated in studies, is that if you take both, and you can take them, they can be taken together, they're compatible, that you will get a synergy of benefits because you're reducing inflammation, you're protecting the arterial wall, et cetera, et cetera. So they say that the focus now has shifted to managing LDL in younger adults in their 20s to 40s to reduce long-term plaque buildup. And that makes sense, because if you decide that you need to take a statin when you're 85, well, most of the damage has been done, and you don't have that many more years to live to accumulate plaque. So I just did the Prevent online calculator, and here's what they ask. They ask what your age is, and I'm 73. I put that in. Systolic blood pressure, very good. That's the first number, 110 often. It's quite good. I put in my total cholesterol, which is a little high. It's 210, but the HDL is 70, so I put that in. I put in my kidney function, which is good. I put in my BMI, which is 25, which is considered non-overweight, and optimal. I said I didn't have diabetes. I wasn't a current smoker. I'm not on a blood pressure medication. I'm not on a lipid-lowering medication. And here's what it spit out. It said that my estimated 10-year risk of cardiovascular disease is 12.9%. That puts me eligible for a statin. In fact, highly recommended for a statin, because what they say is that if your risk for cardiovascular disease is high, i.e. greater than 10%, mine's 12.9% according to the calculator, lipid-lowering therapy is recommended. It's even recommended for patients who have a score of 5 to 10% 10-year risk of cardiovascular disease. And so I look at that number and I go, 12.9 resist. That would be, by the time I'm 83, I only have about a 13% risk of cardiovascular disease. Actually, that's quite good, because according to statistics, approximately 85 to 90% of adults age 80 plus have some form of cardiovascular disease. So if I don't, I'm in the minority if I actually reach the age of 83, attain 83, with no cardiovascular disease. That includes, of course, bad things like stroke, heart attacks, heart failure, but also angina. Even hypertension is considered a form of cardiovascular disease. So, it doesn't mean that my estimated 10-year risk of dying of cardiovascular disease is 13%. I wouldn't get on an airplane if my risk of dying on that airplane was 13%. But missing from this equation, they don't ask, are you physically fit? Do you cycle hours on end? What is your VO2 max? Mine is relatively good, in the 95th percentile for my age. What is your HSCRP, highly sensitive C-reactive protein? Very low in my case, which is also a risk for cardiovascular disease. They don't ask for that. They don't ask, what is your body composition? They just ask your BMI, a very poor indicator of body composition. What's your fat percent? What is your visceral fat percent? That can be obtained with a DEXA scan, or even, some of these scales that you stand on that are a little more expensive and sophisticated than ordinary scales. You can get your fat to lean ratio. They don't ask for that. That is an important consideration. What about your insulin levels? Your hemoglobin A1C, these are important considerations when it comes to cardiovascular disease. They don't ask for that. That's why this test misses the boat, in my opinion, on cardiovascular risk, and too easily includes people who are at risk, maybe misses some people who should be taking statins. Bottom line, you're going to see a push when you go to your next doctor's appointment to get you on a statin. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying we need a more nuanced approach to statin prescribing when the benefits may be negligible for some people and very decisive for others. 877-726-8255, our number. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman, and this is Intelligent Medicine.
You know that feeling when everything just clicks? Your mind is sharp, your mood is steady, your body feels like it's firing on all cylinders. That's not luck. That's what your body is capable of every single day. Now, I've looked into a lot of fish oil supplements, and honestly, most of them are mystery-sourced, over-processed, blasted with heat, and packed with synthetic add-ins. But this one is different. Omega-3 Rejuvenate from Big Bold Health starts with wild Alaskan salmon and cod, sustainably caught from some of the cleanest waters on the planet, and then it's processed at low temperatures to preserve what actually matters. We're talking about real omega-3s, naturally occurring vitamins A and D, and pro-resolving mediators, or PRMs, that help your body balance its own immune response. What does that mean for you? Clearer thinking, more stable mood, and real nature-based support for your heart and immune system. No shortcuts, no synthetic nonsense. And it was developed by Dr. Jeffrey Bland, a true pioneer in the world of complementary health. If you want to feel the difference, go to bigboldhealth.com/Hoffman. That's bigboldhealth.com/Hoffman and use code Hoffman for 20% off site-wide. Once you feel it, you'll know. If your quest for longevity feels overwhelming, here's some good news. It starts with one simple daily habit. Mitopure gummies from Timeline. They're the first ever longevity gummies that ignite mitophagy, your body's natural anti-aging pathway. Mitopure is a clinically validated solution backed by over 15 years of research. Mitopure gummies utilize a powerful compound that redefines what's possible for your longevity. Mitopure produces the first ever urolithin A gummies that support your cellular energy so you feel strong, clear, and vibrant. Boost your cellular energy and enhance muscle strength and endurance, all without changing your diet or exercise routine. As someone who loves to stay active, I've noticed a significant boost in my workouts since I started using it. I feel stronger and more energized, and my recovery time has improved dramatically. Better recovery starts at the cellular level. For more information and to order, just go to timeline.com/Hoffman. Use coupon code Hoffman at checkout for 20% off. That's timeline.com/Hoffman for 20% off Mitopure gummies with code Hoffman.
Subscribe to the Intelligent Medicine Podcast, updated several times weekly. Go to drhoffman.com.
Welcome back to Intelligent Medicine. Dr. Ronald Hoffman here. 877-726-8255 is the way you get into the doctor's office to pose a question, and let's hear one of those.
Hi, Dr. Hoffman. I was curious if a woman who is in her late 50s still needs DHEA in her body. Thanks.
Okay, so DHEA is kind of a unisex androgen. Both men and women have testosterone, but men have far more testosterone than women. That's the big sex differentiator. DHEA is kind of a unisex androgen. Women have about a third to a half of the DHEA that men have, sometimes more. If women have polycystic ovarian syndrome, they have high DHEA, and thus they may have acne and bodily and facial hair. So DHEA for women past menopause, DHEA tends to decline as one ages, and it's thought to be an anti-aging hormone, but it's controversial because since it's a hormone, it may actually stoke, if you have hidden cluster of cells in your breast that may turn cancerous, it may stimulate them. That might be a concern. Same thing in the uterus. And so it has a hormonal effect, but there's also some evidence that it may help with menopause symptoms. It may help with libido. I've seen this really make a difference for some women who have low sexual response. It is a neurosteroid, so it actually works in the brain to improve mood and alleviate depression. There is some evidence that may help to support bone strength and reduce the risk of osteoporosis, especially in postmenopausal women. There are some studies in both men and women that suggest the potential to reduce abdominal visceral fat, which is good, aesthetically, but also metabolically. And there's some evidence that may improve cognitive function and memory. In folks taking steroids, prednisone, dexamethasone, and these types of steroidal medications, often they have low DHEA, and giving them DHEA helps to boost their energy and stamina and offsets the negative side effects, the adrenal suppression that occurs when you take outside steroids. But you got to be careful, and women, you got to give lower. I personally take DHEA as a male, but women should probably take a little less because I've seen side effects including resumption of acne, which is disconcerting when you're 50 or 60, oily skin, and even some degree of hair recession. So DHEA is available over the counter. I got a problem with that because I think that its use should be supervised by a physician who kind of takes into account all the various aspects of your health. And certainly if you're at risk for cancer, it is a hormone and may actually be contraindicated if you're a male with an elevated PSA, or if you're a woman with excessive uterine bleeding or risk for uterine cancer, or if you have previous history of breast cancer or breast abnormalities. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman, 877-726-8255, our number, and this is Intelligent Medicine.
Now, more than ever, it is important to have a healthy immune system. Many health professionals agree that probiotics are a leading natural therapy for boosting immune health. Why? Because 70% of your body's immune cells reside in the GI tract. By taking a superior probiotic daily, like Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, you can enhance your overall immune system and immune response. The key to Dr. Ohhira's success is the 500-plus postbiotic metabolites that are in each capsule. Postbiotic metabolites are important to the regulation of most systems in our body. For a short-term immune boost, try Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus. Merging nature and science, Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus combines Brazilian green propolis, vitamin E, astaxanthin, and tocotrienols for additional and powerful immune support. Be proactive about your immune health. Ask your retailer today about Dr. Ohhira's probiotics and Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus today. Also available online.
Kids don't just bring home homework, they bring home germs. And those germs don't just stay with them, they spread to the whole household. That's why Clear Nasal Spray was created by a practicing physician to give parents and grandparents peace of mind. You may not think about it, but your nose is filtering out a semi-truck full of air every single day. Clear isn't just another spray. It creates an additional layer of protection in your nose that blocks bacteria and viruses before they can even take hold. Yes, even that virus. Supporting your body's defenses right where germs first try to enter. Clear is a hygiene product recommended for daily use, drug-free, non-drowsy, and safe for all ages. Just a quick spray in the morning and evening helps you cleanse your nose. Don't just hope for protection, create it. Get Clear Nasal Spray, your daily defense. Clear Nasal Spray is available at retailers nationwide and online. Check out Xlear.com for our special offers. That's Xlear.com.
drhoffman.com, your portal for cutting-edge information on health and nutrition.
Welcome back to Intelligent Medicine. Dr. Ronald Hoffman here. A lot of excitement about space this week as the Artemis mission around the moon is concluding. And so let's talk about sex in space. You know, I've heard about the Mile High Club where people kind of steal away and consummate in the bathroom on a plane. That was a thing. What about the 250,000 Mile High Club? Well, we actually have mixed crews of men and women. I don't think they had a lot of time or initiative to undertake sexual activities during the Artemis flight, but longer flights are contemplated, and there will be moon bases eventually, and maybe even Mars bases and interstellar travel. And so the question of whether reproduction is possible in extraterrestrial environments is no longer just hypothetical. There may be a possibility of not just humans trying to reproduce in space or on planets or on the moon, but also they might try to domesticate animals and see if they can, say, raise sheep or cattle, or fish on outer planets. But they've actually found something interesting. They found that microgravity conditions tend to confuse the sperm. They disrupt sperm navigation, and they reduce fertilization rates. And also there's concern about the quality and survival of early embryos, because you see, over millions and millions of years of evolution, we've evolved these systems under conditions of gravity. And the way that the sperm find the egg, they navigate based on signals that they receive from gravity. And that function appears to be disrupted. They have more difficulty finding the egg. According to a spokesperson from the Research Institute in Australia who figured this out. They say that when that gravitational pull is removed, the sensors in the sperm appear to be thrown off, leaving the sperm without a reliable frame of reference for up, down, or which direction to move. It's a bit like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded and spinning. And so what they found is that for mice, there was a 30% reduction in successful fertilization after 4 to 6 hours of microgravity. And for humans, there was a 50% reduction in the number of human sperm that successfully navigated in microgravity compared to normal gravity. So the sperm are going to be confused. And then when the embryo is fertilized, well, first of all, fewer embryos are formed, and those that did showed signs of developmental delay and reduced cell counts in the critical early stages. So they're going to have to try and lick that problem if we expect to colonize the moon, the planets, and outer space. Because according to the Australian researcher, the clearest conclusion is reproduction in space is going to be considerably more challenging than most people assume. So, yeah, okay, something to look forward to. 877-726-8255, our number. Oh, when we return, we're going to take a look at a nutrient that I'm extremely excited about and its impact on muscle metabolism. We're coming to realize it's more than just aesthetics. Muscle affects the functioning of the metabolism. It affects the brain and has vast implications for our health beyond just looking good in spandex. 877-726-8255, our number. This is Intelligent Medicine.
You're listening to Intelligent Medicine, a resource to help you take control of your health. We offer a balanced, objective analysis of all your health, wellness, and aging options, both conventional and alternative. Now you can take your engagement to the next level by joining FullScript. FullScript is my online dispensing platform that only offers curated, professional-grade supplement brands that I know and trust. Never counterfeit or expired, always stored and shipped correctly. Just go to drhoffmanstore.com for more information and to start your free FullScript account. Buying through FullScript offers fast, free shipping, optional refill reminders, a mobile-friendly site. It's safe, secure, and HIPAA compliant and offers world-class support. Just go to drhoffmanstore.com. You'll get access to the supplements and features you need to help you achieve your wellness goals, including my custom targeted protocols that combine the products I recommend to address specific needs, heart health, immune support, and much more. It's all at drhoffmanstore.com. drhoffmanstore.com. There's a crucial molecule in your body that helps control everything. Your circulation, your energy, your stamina, your heart, even your sharpness of mind. It's called nitric oxide. But after age 40, your body makes less and less of it. Less blood flow, less stamina, less of you. But now there's N101, the nitric oxide lozenge developed by Dr. Nathan Bryan, the world's leading nitric oxide researcher backed by Nobel Prize-winning science. N101 is designed to naturally restore your body's nitric oxide levels. Just do what I do and let one dissolve in your mouth twice a day. I especially make sure to take it before workouts. N101 goes to work in minutes, releasing nitric oxide directly into your bloodstream, supporting healthy circulation, boosting oxygen delivery to your muscles and brain, helping you feel the way you're supposed to feel. More energy, better blood flow, sharper focus. Day after day, N101, it's the science of you working better. Visit HoffmanNO.com. That's HoffmanNO.com and use coupon code Hoffman10 for 10% off N101.
A regular dose of intelligent medicine injected directly into your inbox. Subscribe to Dr. Hoffman's free newsletter. Just go to drhoffman.com.
Welcome back to Intelligent Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. Our number is 877-726-8255. But we're going to hold calls for a moment because I want to focus on muscle, because muscle is in, not just because it's aesthetic, but because we're coming to recognize that muscle has some very, very important roles in our physiology. And I've been taking a supplement that I believe is one of the best ways to support muscle function. And we're going to talk to an expert. He's Brad Currier, clinical trial manager, Timeline, a Swiss biotech company. that makes a product called Mitopure. We've been talking about it here. Who better to talk about muscle than a PhD in muscle physiology? So welcome, Brad. We talked to you during our weekly podcast, but I wanted our weekend listeners to hear a little bit about the benefits of urolithin A for muscle. But first, could you frame the discussion? Why is muscle gaining so much traction these days in discussions about overall health?
Absolutely. And Dr. Hoffman, thanks so much as always for having me here. It's always a treat to speak on any topic. Muscle is really having, it's growing. It's having its heyday, and rightfully so. I think by many it's considered the longevity organ. And there's a few key reasons that I'd highlight. One, just the size of it. Muscle is 40% of our body weight. On average, it's a huge amount of just our body. And we all can think of how muscle is important for movement, and certainly mobility is critical to healthy aging and just overall function in life. But a really underappreciated part of muscle is its role in metabolism. So muscle is actually the main site that our bodies will store glucose or sugar after we eat food. And it's a major contributor to our resting metabolic rate. So how many calories we burn just by existing as a human is heavily dictated by how much muscle we have. We could go on and on about the health benefits, but muscle is much more than just the machinery that makes us move. It has serious roles in our metabolism throughout the lifespan.
As well as for brain function, because I think there's evidence that certain humors that are secreted by muscle, they have effects on cognition.
Yeah, there's actually a buzzword for this in recent years that's been getting a bit more traction, and it's myokine. So we hear of cytokines or all the different kinds, things that are secreted and have an impact on other organs in the body. Myokines, being spelled literally MYO to start, meaning muscle, is exactly that, things that are secreted by the muscle, and that's just starting to be better and better understood. Even coupled with that is something called exerkines. So things that are selectively released from the muscle following exercise. And it's a really exciting area, a young, I would say, not quite in its infancy, but an area of research that's been getting more and more attention over the last 5 years or so.
Indeed. So it's not just the quantity of muscle, it's also the quality of muscle. And as one ages, you can actually do studies using CT scans, imaging, MRIs that show that the quality of muscle declines. It becomes more marbled, and the muscle fibers tend to deteriorate, right?
You're absolutely right. And so muscle quality, just for a definition, is not just how much we have. So muscle mass is how much muscle we have. Muscle quality is how strong or how effective that muscle is per unit of mass. So you can have muscle that is very fit and probably pretty strong and metabolically healthy. You could have the same amount of muscle tissue, but in cases of immobilization or aging, we do see that fat infiltration, this fiber type shifting away from those quick twitch or type 2 muscle fibers, and metabolic insensitivities, so things like responding to insulin. Across the board, muscle quality decreases with aging.
Indeed. So what are some of the determinants of that? It seems that the mitochondria have a lot to do with that. These are simplistically, they're thought to be the energy powerhouses of the cells, but they do a lot more. They seem to actually have a lot to do with synthesis of essential proteins and signaling within the cell.
Exactly. The mitochondria, ask your local high school biology student, it's a powerhouse of the cell.
It's a battery.
Tell you that.
Right.
It's a battery, and it absolutely is. But similar to how muscle is not just our movement engine, mitochondria are so much more. So mitochondria, we can almost think of it as an energy factory within our cells. It's where we take the food we eat and transform it into cellular energy that our body can use. And with that process comes reactions that when things go wrong, it can be deleterious to our health. So there's actually a great researcher whose work I like to highlight called Gerald Shulman out of Yale, looking at how mitochondria dysfunction really underpins things like insulin resistance or even hypertension, cardiovascular disease. Because when these mitochondria become dysfunctional, we have these things like reactive oxygen species being let out into the cell that are disrupting how other parts of the muscle work. And just like you said, mitochondria have other roles in calcium homeostasis and protein folding. So all of these functions, that the mitochondria have, and not just energy production, all of these functions will decline if our mitochondria health is compromised.
And as mitochondria age, they become dysfunctional, but there's a process by which the body kind of winnows away these dysfunctional mitochondria, which is called mitophagy. And that's where urolithin A fits in, right?
It's exactly right. So mitophagy is the selective degradation and recycling of dysfunctional mitochondria. We might have heard of autophagy. Mitophagy is just that process specific to mitochondria. And that's exactly where urolithin A comes in. So urolithin A is a natural molecule. It's a postbiotic. And over the last 20 years, as it's been researched more and more, we understand that one of its key mechanisms of action is stimulating mitophagy. So actually cleaning out and recycling those damaged mitochondria throughout our body. Of course, muscle is a tissue with many, many mitochondria because of its energetic requirements. But systemically, urolithin A stimulates that renewal of mitochondria in our body.
And so what evidence is there, and you being an expert in muscle physiology and also an expert on urolithin, what's the connection? Is there evidence that urolithin has an impact on muscle structure and even performance?
Yes, there is. And that's like any good research, a long time coming. So Timeline, while being one of the leader in this space, was started over 20 years ago looking at urolithin A. And as positive data have continued to accumulate, we now have multiple researchers around the world doing this. Just last year, there were a couple hundred publications on urolithin A, and the majority of the work is now done by independent investigators. But to give you a sense of
which by the way, is a good sign, because it's not just self-serving product promotion by Timeline. It's researchers around the world are saying, send us some of the samples so that we can use it in our research.
Exactly, or even just doing it independently, buying it themselves and doing it. And so it is. It's very reassuring to see it, because at the end of the day, that's our mission, right? It's not to show that urolithin A is awesome. It's to find the best ways we can improve our health span, and urolithin A certainly seems like a great tool for that. So what the research was is, for the first 10 years, it was largely preclinical development, which means looking at its safety and its effects in animal or non-human models. And that's really where we're seeing some incredible results. These are published in Nature Medicine, Nature Metabolism, but showing it improving lifespan 50%, increasing strength and endurance 10 to 30%. And when this data starts to accumulate, it's convincing to say, okay, well, we love our animals, but ultimately we want to help people. So let's see if this translates into humans. And we've actually just kicked off now our 26th clinical trial on Mitopure. And this has been a series of work led over the last 10 years, really taking it through that rigorous clinical development process. So starting from the safety and bioavailability, now up to double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trials.
So in your latest trial, you're now looking at human effects of urolithin A. Is that correct?
Correct. And so this really started with our foundational study published in Nature Metabolism, which would be the equivalent in the pharma world of the phase 1 stage, where we've got this molecule. We look at its dose response, its safety in humans, and then over more chronic use, so over 1 month, actually collecting muscle biopsies and seeing what impact it's having at a molecular level. So this was done where we found that the sweet spot, the best dose is between 500 milligrams and 1 gram per day. And this was safe and well tolerated.
Which by the way, is attainable. It's not like more than you would offer in the consumer product, in the capsules, in the powder. in the new gummies that lozenges that you make.
Correct, and it's exactly what we sell. So,
yeah,
correct. And so the commercial dose that people can buy on Amazon or website is the dose and the exact same product that's used in all these clinical trials. So with that, we see the safety, the benefits at a molecular level, in particular that improved mitochondrial health or cellular energetics. And that's from the muscle biopsies we were collecting from these individuals. And it's really quite a neat signature. It in many ways overlaps with the same change we see with exercise, where there's this improvement in the energetics of the cell at that molecular level. So from there, we've gone on to do trials up to 4 months long and seen significant improvements in muscle strength, some clinically meaningful differences that some of your listeners might particularly be interested in, like in 6-minute walk test or VO2 max. These things improving, with supplementation after a few months of Mitopure.
Indeed. And so I'm a big fan of this because I'm always looking to, preserve my metabolism, have anti-aging effects, but I'm also looking for day-to-day enhancements in my performance, my endurance, my ability to go in the weight room and throw weights around, and also my ability to, swim long distances, cycle long distances, etc. And I'm a big believer in this. I think my recovery times have improved. I think that my performance has improved. And I rely on this. And you can get more information about the Mitopure product. And you can order by going to timeline.com/Hoffman. And for our intelligent medicine listeners, we've set up an option to use coupon code Hoffman at checkout for 20% off. That's timeline.com/Hoffman for 20% off. They now have Mitopure gummies, which I found really helpful when I travel because I usually use the powder. I add it to my smoothie in the morning. But the powder's not practical when you travel because I don't have a blender. I'm not making smoothies, so I just take the gummies along with me. They're great. They're, virtually no sugar. They're not, sugary candy, and they deliver the clinical dosage of Mitopure that really is relevant for improving performance. So that's timeline.com/Hoffman for 20% off Mitopure gummies with code Hoffman. So, Brad, when I actually called you Tim Courier because that's like in the movie. Brad, do you get confused with that sometimes? Yeah, probably.
I'll take any compliment anyway.
Okay, great. So in conclusion, keep up the great work because you're doing outstanding research. I believe in the product. A lot of the leading anti-aging researchers and certainly a lot of athletes and longevity biohackers are using Mitopure. And so congratulations to you. Thanks for doing the work to substantiate the benefits of this extraordinary compound. Really a pleasure having you on. We'll also do a long-form podcast later on this subject for more information. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman, and this is Intelligent Medicine.